Sexy sells, and it's really just that simple. Yet there are so many developers out there who do not understand this little tidbit of information and will actively make characters look ugly in order to fight against things like the male gaze, which is ridiculous. But now gamers are overwhelmingly voting for attractive lead characters in a new CI Games poll, and I can't say I'm that shocked. Before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I think that there are so many gorgeous female characters and hunky masculine male characters within video games, and I appreciate all of them. But over the past few years, we've definitely seen the uglification of a lot of characters who either previously existed or they're new and they were intentionally dumbed down. Like, look at Star Wars Outlaws. Humberly Gonzalez is a gorgeous woman, yet when they put her into this game, they made her look ugly. Her jawline's completely different. Her hair looked terrible. Her face just looks really crazy. She got hit in the face with the ugly stick. But in real life, she's really pretty. That seems intentional. Look at what they've done with Harley Quinn. In the Arkhamverse games, like Origins, Asylum, City, and Night, she looked amazing. But when they put her in Kill the Justice League, which in my opinion is not an Arkhamverse game, and I am not counting it in the series, she looks terrible. She looks modernized. This all seems very intentional, and I could go on and on about examples of developers seemingly fucking up characters' faces and trying to do this to, again, fight against the perceived evil of the male gaze. But Marek Tominsky of CI Games has been putting up a lot of polls on the industry and also on video games in general, because it does seem that CI Games is going to implement some of the decisions that are made into their titles, like with Lords of the Fallen. As far as we are aware, there is going to be a removal of body type A and B, and male and female are going to replace it. That's the way it should have always been, at least in my opinion. But he put up another poll saying, should lead video game characters be widely considered attractive by the majority of players, which I voted a yes, and most other gamers that came across this did as well, because it is sitting at an 84.4% yes, only a 2.5% no, and then a 13.1% I don't care. And this is such a funny situation to me because the modern audience could have shown up and stolen this poll. I say this all the time, like with the DEI detected or Sweet Baby Ink list. You could go down that list and buy every single title off of it, and if 100,000 people who could be considered the modern audience did that and played one game at one time, they could prove the chuds that they're fighting against wrong. But they never do that because the modern audience doesn't really exist. Companies are making games for nobody. All they're doing is losing out on a boatload of cash, and they deserve it if they're that dumb. Now, I think that it is really great that there are so many polls going up by the CI Games CEO, that they really appear to be trying to listen to gamers. Obviously, don't believe anything happens until it's actually implemented or a release date is announced for these changes, but I do think that this points to a really good direction, and I do think that all of these are going to be implemented and it's going to lead to even more success for them. Now, gamers are talking about this, saying, unless the role deems it appropriate for them to be hideous or grotesque, yes, which I agree with. Look at Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones. Even though they picked a beautiful woman to play her in the show and she didn't look ugly at all, Gwendolyn Christine is beautiful, they still could have cast a much more hideous character because that was part of her arc, and that's the way that she was written in the book. And in that case, I would never, ever ask for them to change that around. I would not ask for them to, make that character drop dead gorgeous, but they could, because it has to do with the story. And in that case, it would be perfectly fine to have somebody that looked grotesque. My answer is generally yes, but exceptions can be made where a game's narrative or aesthetic requires it. At the end of the day, every kind of player wants to play as someone who looks cool, especially if you can't customize them. How is this even a question if not attractive, they should have a unique design that is cool, which I do agree with. Yes, we don't want to play as someone who looks like Jeff Grubb in a video game. Yes, please, no one wants to play as an ugly male or female. As a female myself, I love seeing very feminine, gorgeous, attractive ladies in my games, but I also like seeing hunky, masculine men. The perfect definition of what a male and a female should be. Is every character going to be this? Absolutely not. But I think that on average, yeah, people do want to play as good looking characters. It's like in superhero movies and TV shows. Why do I want to watch an overweight character flying around doing these superhero like things? You would think that they would be very fit, that they would be athletic, because that would help them in the like field of battle. But the modern audience says, oh no, we need to have all different sorts of body types and all different sorts of characters doing these things. And you can write that, but that doesn't mean it's going to sell. And typically, stories that feature those types of characters in those types of situations do not sell very well. It's why the mainstream comic industry has been dying over the past few years, and independent creators have been thriving because they understand their audience and they understand what works. Yes, attractive and well designed characters will always be preferred over ugly ones, no doubt about it. Yes, look at a title like Marvel Rivals versus Concord. They were in the same genre, they were the same type of game, and they looked wildly different and they did wildly different. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason why something like Marvel's Rivals was successful and why Concord failed, because it does also come down to the maps and the modes and the abilities, and in every way Concord failed, Marvel Rivals succeeded. But there's also other games like Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade did phenomenal, and Eve's beauty did help. It was not the only good thing about the game, that's for sure. But in the case of a title like Dustborn, I mean, it was really only propaganda. The developers even said that they created it out of, the pain in their heart from the 2016 election. So guys, Dustborn 2 will be releasing in just a few years, but it's clear as day that this is what sells and this is what gamers want, and we are willing to speak our minds. We are willing to vote in polls and give our opinions, and the majority of gamers, at least that voted in this poll, feel that way. 84.4% is an absolute sweep, and I love to see it. So I will be keeping my eye on the CI Games CEO socials over the next few weeks to see if he puts up any other polls, especially ones that you guys might be interested in. But for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.